Alright, what's going on, y'all? So today I'm going to reveal the cycle I use to turn pro, to get my pro card and become an IFBB pro. This is definitely one of the most popular questions I get. I've been getting this question pretty much every few days for the last year. So I'm going to lay this out for you guys week by week, exactly what I took that allowed me to become an IFBB pro. Now, before we get into it, a couple caveats and disclaimers. First off, I absolutely do not recommend that you do this. Prep and then taking a prep cycle comes with risks, and it will do some damage to your health markers. With that being said, if you are going to go this route, definitely do so under the care of a doctor. And then 3, I do get my blood work done every 3 to 4 months, and I spend quite a bit of money monthly on just health supplements and vitamins and everything to keep my blood work in check. If you're not willing to do that, don't even think about this. And this is, what I took to become a pro. It was my dream to become a pro. So I was willing to essentially put up with the risk of that. Now, with that being said, I tried to lay this out to do this in the safest way possible. But even with that being said, it still does come with risks. So you guys need to be aware of that. Another point is this is what works well for me. A lot of people take different compounds. A lot of people take a lot more. Some people even take less. This is what I have figured out works well for my body. And for essentially, it was what I determined I needed based off of the size and the strength I already had. If you're coming from a place of less development, all of that, you're probably going to need some different stuff than this. All right, so let's jump into it. So first off, before the actual cycle itself, from 12 weeks out all the way through peak week, I took a GDA, glucose dispersal agent, twice per day. That's essentially a non-stem fat burner. And then I took a regular caffeine-based fat burner. Both of these are over the counter. You can get those from pretty much any popular supplement company. I took that every day. So that's kind of the added supplements that I use throughout prep. Another point that I want to make before I actually jump into the cycle itself is I personally like to inject every other day. A lot of people, even with the long esters, they might only inject twice a week, and that's fine. I just personally have noticed way less sides, way more stable blood levels, all of that injecting every other day. So I even do that with long esters. With that point, I use long esters such as TESTE even in a prep, all the way through prep. And as long as you get your estrogen control in place, that should be fine. But this also goes to the point that I just said about injecting every other day. You are able to kind of mitigate a lot of water and stuff from that. But I know that question is going to come up. I do like to use long esters, and I still inject them every other day. All right, so let's get into it. So 12 weeks out to 9 weeks out, I ran testosterone and enanthate, TESTE at 400 milligrams per week. I did equipoise at 200 milligrams per week, NPP at 100 milligrams per week, and then I ran growth hormone, HGH, at 2 IUs a day, and then Arimidex, which is my AI, and I ran that at 1 milligram every other day. And that's essentially what I ran for 12 weeks out through 9 weeks out, so those 4 weeks. And then we started tapering up from there. You'll notice throughout this that I change out some compounds, and then I'll also taper up or taper down doses depending on where we're at in prep and essentially the look that I'm trying to get. So then from 8 weeks out to 6 weeks out, I did TESTE at 450 milligrams per week, so just a slight bump there. Equipoise at 180 milligrams per week, so we're actually coming down with equipoise. And then this is when I went ahead and threw in TREN. I usually put in TREN about 8 weeks out, and I started TREN ACE at 120 milligrams per week. Growth hormone was still kept at 2 IUs a day, and then Arimidex is still at 1 milligram every other day. So then from 6 weeks out to 2 weeks out, I upped the test even more. And now we've got TESTE at 525 milligrams per week. We've got TREN A at 120 milligrams per week. Now is when we start throwing in some orals. So I've got Winstrol at 25 milligrams, and I took that twice per day. So I took that right before fasted cardio, and then I would also take it later on again in the evening. Clen was started at this point. So Clen is a very potent fat burner. Took this at 40 micrograms per day, and I would just take that right upon awakening before fasted cardio. And then this is also when I threw in Proviron. Proviron, I've noticed, at least with my physique, it really gives a much sharper look. I ran this at 25 milligrams twice per day. Same kind of thing, right in the morning, and then again later in the evening. Growth hormone still kept at 2 IUs per day, and then Arimidex is still at every other day. Another note I want to make here is that A lot of people like to keep their testosterone doses lower and keep everything else higher. So a lot of people will run, low dose tests with high TREN, all of that. One based off of blood work, and then two based off of my own response. I actually prefer higher testosterone doses and lower on a lot of the other compounds. If I'm running something like Primo that has a lot better safety profile and all of that, that's where I might run, higher Primo. But especially with something like TREN that's very, very harsh on blood work, I try to keep that as low as possible. And you don't need very much TREN to essentially maintain the muscle you have. And that's when I'm really throwing in the TREN. Yes, it gives a cosmetic look. It really hardens up the muscles, all of that. But the great thing about TREN is that it'll keep you anti-catabolic. So it'll keep you from losing a lot of muscle as you get deeper and deeper into a diet. But you don't need a lot of TREN to do that. A lot of people are blasting way too much TREN, in my opinion, and it does do quite a bit of damage to the body. So just keep that in mind. That is why I like to actually have higher testosterone and then lower TREN and all the other stuff. So then from 2 weeks out through peak week, I've still got TESTE at 525 milligrams per week. TRENA, this is now when we bump up. So this is the last 2 weeks. I bumped up to 300 milligrams per week. Winstrol is now at 50 milligrams twice per day. So we've doubled the Winstrol. Clen is still at 40 micrograms per day. Proviron's at 25 milligrams twice per day. And then now Arimidex is thrown in at 1 milligram every day. So this is to really, really start cutting down the water, getting dry. At this point, you're gonna crash your estrogen. You already feel like crap, all of that. And like I said, this is the part too that really gets to where it's not very, very healthy, but is to give that look on stage. So then I cut injectables 3 days out, but I still run orals throughout the show. So, a few days out from the show, I'll cut, all the injections, but I'll still run, the Winstrol and the Proviron and then my Arimidex through the show. So one thing I noticed with this and one thing that I'm doing moving forward is definitely cutting back on my anti-estrogen use. So, not using as much Arimidex, all of that. That's also not very healthy for you long term, is to be using a lot of anti-estrogens, and a lot of people rely too much on that. And I honestly relied too much on that for this prep. But this is what I took. Moving forward, I am going to try things slightly different. I am curious to see, how much I could get by without even using anything like TREN. But with that being said, I did get my blood work done after the show, a few weeks after the show. And, my health markers, frankly, they took a little bit of a hit, but they weren't terrible. And then 2 months after the show, after I had been cruising and clearing out, everything was completely back to normal and my blood work looked fantastic. But with that being said, like I said, I do spend a good bit more money than most to take a lot of health supplements and everything to protect my organs, my heart, a ton of vitamins. So, you do really, really need to stay on point with everything, especially if you're going into a prep, because it's not healthy. It is to give you an outcome of looking a certain way on stage. And then, if you're going this route to, essentially try to become a pro bodybuilder. But this is what I took. This is what allowed me to, turn pro at the national championships in Orlando back in December. So, this is what worked well for me. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did, please go ahead and smash that like button, hit subscribe if you haven't already. Leave any comments or questions down below. I do plan to do some more videos coming out in the future, kind of educating you guys on safer use of, going this route. Because, there's a lot of misinformation out there. A lot of people are doing a lot of really, really dangerous stuff with already dangerous stuff. This stuff is a risk to your health. And if you use it even, in a worse way, you're just going to be doing more damage. So I will be bringing you a little bit more on this topic. If you guys have any questions on it, definitely drop it down below. I'd love to, get video ideas from you guys. But be happy, be positive, be powerful. Have a great rest of your day.